DaVo here from the Axiom Body Piercing Studio in Des Moines, Iowa, and coming up right now, female nipple piercings, pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages from a piercer. That's me. So stick around. Those that are new to the channel or aren't familiar with who I am, my name is DaVo. I'm a professional piercer, have been since 1994. I own and operate the Axiom Body Piercing Studio in Des Moines, Iowa, and we share our location with Skin Kitchen Tattoo. So when I'm talking about these things, I'm talking about them from a point of expertise, of doing this piercing multiple times, probably, I don't know, thousands upon thousands of times. Also helping my clients go through the healing process and addressing issues or problems that came up after the piercing was done. So what I'm going to do is go through some 5 advantages, 5 disadvantages, 5 pros, 5 cons that are more common with female nipple piercings and something you should consider before getting it done or getting them done. We're going to start with the pros, the advantages. Number 1, increases sensitivity of the nipple area. This varies from person to person. However, I would say a majority of clients at least notice a new sensation or different sensation after getting it pierced. I've had a number of clients that have breastfed and they got the piercing done after that and have kind of felt like some of that sensitivity came back. There is no 100% guarantee to that. We're all wired a little different, both mentally, physically, and otherwise, so it can affect people differently. It's a great, number 2, it's a great looking piercing. The nipple is just one of those parts of the anatomy that cries out to be pierced, kind of like the lobes. It protrudes from the body and it fits well into it. There's also a large variety of jewelry out there to enhance the area and make it look good. So if you're self-conscious about your nipples, it might be something that makes it, put a little bling there and make it feel better. Number 3, increases the size or the pronunciation of the nipple. Usually when you pierce nipples, they will increase in size roughly about 1/8 of an inch or so, and they will tend to have a more erect state. If this is something you're self-conscious about, something you want to change in your body and make you feel better about yourself, this is one of the reasons why you might consider doing this and one of the advantages of getting your nipple pierced, or nipples pierced. I have also had clients that have had inverted nipples where we have done the piercing and they've gotten very good results afterwards. I would say that was probably, if I was going to break it down to percentage, I would say about 4 out of 5 maybe. There were some issues with migration with a lot of them, or was maybe 1 or 2 of them over the years, but for the most part it did seem to heal well, and then once again, it's not an inverted nipple anymore. The other thing with underdeveloped nipples, it can kind of increase the size and make them look more full. Number 4, easy to hide under clothing. If you work in a profession where you're not allowed to have visual piercings, or you're in some sport activity or some type of organization, or maybe you just want to make sure that everyone that you come in contact with doesn't know that you have a piercing, it is one of the piercings that's easy to hide under clothing. Unlike other piercings, like of course if you got your eyebrow pierced, it's kind of hard to hide that every time you meet somebody, but you can wear clothing. I've had some clients that have stated that there was a little bit of notice when they wore like sports bras or thinner knit bras and switched to padded, and nobody seemed to notice. Number 5, long history and tradition of healing well and easily. This is one of those piercings that does take a long time to heal, but it has a tradition of healing pretty successfully with little or no issues, just a long healing period, which we'll get to later. With piercings like nipple piercings where suddenly they become really popular, you might see more traumatic issues, mainly because you're doing more of them. I haven't really seen that with nipples. Like I said, they've been part of modern body piercing since the very beginning. Lots and lots of people have successfully healed out this piercing. It's not like the more experimental or outside the normal realm piercings where you're not going to see the success rate. as you would with this one. For example, dermal implants and surface-to-surface piercings are not going to heal as well as a piercing that has a tradition of over close to 40 years of healing correctly, maybe more. Now let's get into the cons, the disadvantages. Number one, you cannot breastfeed with the jewelry in. Well, you can, but I don't suggest it. Putting a steel object in an infant's mouth that has loose or moving parts is not a good idea, especially when they're sucking on it. So if you are planning on getting pregnant, or you're possibly going to get pregnant, or you're planning a family, it might be one of those piercings that you want to put off until afterwards, because you're going to want to remove the jewelry while breastfeeding. There is the possibility of taking the jewelry out, breastfeeding, and then putting it back in if it's healed. However, nipple piercings are one of those piercings that is prone to closing quickly. So it's not something I generally advise. It's kind of either A or B. Plus, hey, you're going through a lot of life changes, and do you want to hassle with constantly changing jewelry on top of everything else? Long healing time. This piercing generally will take anywhere from 6 months to a year, if not longer, to heal. It is just one of those piercings that's prone to taking a little bit longer because of the amount of tissue that we're traveling through with the piercing and the location. Usually women sometimes heal a little bit faster than men, but it is something you consider that it is going to be an open wound during that period of time. This can affect a lot of different things, which I'll get into in the last one, including lifestyle changes, routine changes, in limiting certain activities. Number 3, can be prone to migration or rejection if done incorrectly or is done with the incorrect size jewelry. Common mistake I see with nipple piercings, female nipple piercings, and male nipple piercings is the piercing is done with jewelry that is way too small for the amount of tissue that's gone through. This is especially true of anything that's curved or circular, like rings or curved barbells, where basically the whole piercing is forced to try to heal in a giant arch. We don't want that. That's going to prolong the healing period, that's going to make it harder to heal, and it's going to make it more prone to problems. So, and it will cause it to migrate or reject. Most piercings will move and shift a little bit regardless of how well they're done or how the jewelry is done. Kind of like your body kind of puts it in that spot that it feels is most comfortable. Usually this is very minor and most people don't notice it, but with nipples where we're trying to get this visual effect of being straight on, sometimes it can be kind of frustrating. However, if the jewelry is done correctly, or the piercing is done correctly, and the jewelry is correct, you probably won't see migration or rejection, though nipples are done for that. If you have a really underdeveloped nipple, or you have inverted nipples, you are at an increased risk of migration. If you are extremely well endowed, once again, because there's so much pressure on the piercing, there is an increased likelihood of migration or rejection. So keep that in mind before getting the piercings done, or piercing. Number 4, tends to go through grumpy phases. For those new to piercing, or maybe don't understand, or maybe you've never heard that term before, grumpy is when a piercing seems like it's doing perfectly fine, healing pretty well, kind of gotten through all its soreness phases, and etc. And then suddenly it will flare up, be red, agitated, uncomfortable, discharge more than it usually does, etc. This can be caused by some form of trauma, or with nipples, sometimes no matter how well you take care of them, they go through these phases. And they usually will last a few days, and then they'll stop. I have had a lot of clients, female clients, that have noticed that this happens during their monthly cycle, and whether or not that is affected and what's going on, not really any scientific proof or any studies have been done on it, but that is a possibility. I've also had clients that even with healed piercings will notice discomfort when it comes to that period of the month. And even males who, if they're starting to get sick, will suddenly have some discomfort in a well-healed nipple. I've experienced that myself. Sometimes when I get the flu, suddenly they're a little sore. And I've had them for over 20 years. So that takes us to number 5. And this is about aftercare. This is the things you're going to need to do and the lifestyle changes and how it's going to affect your life over the next 6 months to a year and a half. During which I suggest doing hot compresses or soaks, in this case soaks, with warm water and sea salt twice daily for 10 minutes. Also cleaning the area twice daily in the shower using an antimicrobial or germicidal soap such as satin or Proven. Additionally, cross-contamination prevention. Common sense things: washing your hands before you handle it, no oral contact or exchanging of bodily fluids on, near, or around the piercing, including your own saliva. I've never understood why people think it's safe to lick their fingers and clean. Don't do that. It's disgusting. Which generally implies that you need to keep your partners away from the piercings until they are completely healed. So it might be something that you want to discuss with your partner beforehand, because that area of your body is going to be off limits for 6 months to a year, maybe longer. So talk that through with your partner if you have a long-term partner. So it is a change. Also, back to the cross-contamination prevention, keeping your environment clean: clothing, bedding, towels, not submerging the piercing in bodies of water you can't control the quality of, which is pretty much everything but your own clean bathtub. And that means no swimming. No swimming. No swimming. Just in case you missed that, no swimming. Keep pets away from it. Don't let them sleep in the bed with you. They just drag every contaminant they have come in contact for the entire day and mess up your clean linen and just smear it all over the place. So make them sleep in the hallway. They're going to hate it at first, but they'll get used to it. They love you. We know that. You don't have to sleep with them every single night. Clothing changes. Probably one of the more common questions I always get with female nipple piercings is what type of bra should I wear? That varies from person to person. Everybody has different body types and what works for them and may not work for someone else. However, the most common that I've found over the years is sports bras, men's A shirts, tank tops, tube tops, anything that has kind of even support that doesn't allow a lot of jostling around, but doesn't put pressure on the piercing. Now, if you're different size, larger size, smaller size, you may find those uncomfortable. So kind of experiment and see what works best for you. The other thing I do suggest is doing it while is wearing a bra while you're sleeping, at least for that first couple weeks, as it gets over its kind of more tender phase, and you're not woken up every time you toss and turn. Lifestyle changes. You do not want to sleep on the piercing until it is completely healed, or piercings. Sleeping on piercings, even though it might feel perfectly fine to lay down on it, you don't feel anything. You don't really realize how much you jostle around and move in your sleep, and that movement can cause abuse of the piercing and lead to other issues. Was going through the editing and realized I forgot to mention this. Sports and exercise and leisure activities. If you are involved in any type of sport that may cause you to, or you might be required to wear anything that's constrictive against the piercings, I don't suggest getting them done or waiting until after you're done doing that activity and then get them done so that you don't have to worry about that constriction. Also, if you're in a sports or activity that's going to involve diving or jumping or landing or sliding or anything that may impact the piercings, I would suggest waiting until afterwards, until they're healed, then go get them done. Exercise. Basically exercise the way you're supposed to, which is do it until it hurts or you feel any discomfort. Usually it doesn't really affect it that much. Basically with female nipple piercings, I don't have female nipples, but from talking to clients, what generally they experience is that the jostling around is uncomfortable. So if you can limit that as much as possible, it's going to probably make it more comfortable. However, it's not uncommon to feel kind of some tightness in this area in the upper pecs right after the piercing is done, sometimes around the armpit for a couple days usually. Not usually much longer than that. If you notice anything else beyond that, I'd probably get in contact with your piercer or see a physician. So, certain activities, like anything that involves doing this motion, may be uncomfortable sometimes doing this motion. So, if you're in an exercise program or something that does involve that daily, you might want to consider either cutting back or trying something else until it is comfortable again. And that covers it. Most of it, anyway. If you feel like I didn't cover something, or I started to expand on something and you didn't feel like I answered the question completely or to your satisfaction, please leave a comment below. If you disagree with something I've said, please do that too, because I'd like to have a discussion about that, especially if I'm going to learn something, because I'm all about learning stuff. I don't know about you, but that's kind of the point of the internet, in my opinion, is to learn knowledge every day. So, all that's left is for you to like the video, subscribe, especially if you're into body piercing and tattooing. We put a lot of content on here regarding that. Other than that, I hope to see you if you're in the area for your body piercing needs in the future.